Welcome back, diecast collectors. Today I've got a special video, a new series I'm putting out each year of my entire collection, starting right from the first year of Hot Wheels that I truly collect, all castings and all variations, 1974. What a colorful assortment of 24 different castings that came out back in 1974. There, of course, were many more releases of some of these castings throughout the years, and you'll see those in the future videos as we progress through the years up and until about 1994-95, and we'll see where we go from there. But let's first get into this classic Redline video, and we're going to take a close look, a short close look at each and every one of these awesome old castings, which in many cases I have been able to collect now in pristine mint condition. There's a few that aren't, and some of these cars are extremely hard to find, so hold on to your seats, hold on to your hats I should say. Let's get into a multi-thousand-dollar Hot Wheel 1974 review. And when I say multi-thousand, I'm not kidding. Some of these cars cost $1,000 each, well, a couple of them, and many more very close to it. So we'll look at the prices I paid for some of these cars, and you know, that might still be reflective of current values. I would say they're probably even more valuable now as more and more people collect these and use tools such as eBay to find them. I've got the cars displayed for you in alphabetical order as per their names from Hot Wheels. The first two you're looking at, the blue and green station wagons, are the Alive 55, also known later on as the 55 Chevy Nomad. And next to it we've got the Baja Bruiser. This one features the metal base. We'll look at more of the details closer, we're just going to go through them here. Then we've got the Breakaway Bucket. A really cool casting, not seen again after this year. And two versions of the Buzz Off. Buzz Off, man! Cool casting. Very rare one is pictured to the right. Then we've got the Carabao with the somewhat gull-wing style doors, more like Lamborghini. We'll look at those, of course, in just a second. And moving over here to continue with the alphabetical, we've got the El Rey Special. Sorry, I went in a little out of order here. El Rey Special is that green car here, which also went by several names through the years, but in '74 it was the El Rey Special. Then we've got Funny Money. This is a cool drag type armored truck with a flip up top. Two versions of the Ferrari 312P. The only difference here is that I've got one with capped wheels on the back, the old style Redline capped wheels, and this one has the newer style for 1974 basic Redline wheel. The Grasshopper. This one has the blown motor sticking through the hood. There is another version that came out later on in, I believe, '75 that had a hood on it. And who could forget this awesome heavy Chevy. A '67 Chevy Camaro with a blown motor as well. And we've got Ice-T. An interesting name for that vehicle. It even says it right on the back of its roof. Ice-T. And two examples of the Red Baron. This is a old casting that goes way back into the '60s, I believe, or at least early '70s. Got two examples here as well. We'll look at the difference between those in a minute. And now we've got the Rash 1. The first example being green. You'll see another one in a minute. The Prowler. And the Police Cruiser. This is the only version that came out with an opening hood. Got the Paddy Wagon. And the Porsche 917. Mercedes C111. Two examples of the Roger Dodger. Again, just a wheel difference on this one. The more used version there has the original Redline style wheel, capped wheel on the back. The minty one is all basic. And what do we got here? This is the Sir Rodney Roadster. Cool little hot rod. Two examples of the Steamroller now. One of them is an extremely rare version with a chrome plastic base. Most of them had a metal base. One of my favorite castings, the Top Eliminator. Another funny car with a pop-up top. The VW Bug. And the Winnipeg. A lot of opening parts on these old cars. Now as we go into the back two rows, these are alternate color Hot Wheels. A much rarer version of the cars you just saw, with different paint schemes and tampos. And we've also got some, what I call the promotional cars. But starting out, we've got two alternate color Baja Bruisers, or Baja Bruiser, sorry. Baja Bruiser. The Breaker's the van. Got one with a purple in the tampo and the other with blue in the tampo. Those two vehicles cost me over $1,000. Then we've got an extremely rare yellow Carabao, not in the greatest shape. Another El Rey Special in dark blue. I am missing the light blue one. There is a light blue one out there, but it's really hard to find. But not nearly as hard to find as this Porsche 911, P911 they call it, in white. Very, very rare alternate color. Just as rare as this green heavy Chevy, which also cost me well over $1,000. Just that one car. Then we've got a yellow iced tea. And we'll just skip across here. This is a red version of the Porsche 917. Hard to find. There are actually two different variations. One has a different tampo. Very minor difference. I've only got the one. That was a $300 car. Then a green Prowler. A blue El Rey Special. Or Rash 1, sorry. Blue Rash 1. That was another very expensive car and hard to find. Took me a long time to get that one. Two more Sir Rodney Roadsters. One in orange, one in green. And a minty VW Bug. This has the alternate tampo. Same color as the other VW Bug that we saw. But this one was about a $550 car. And here's the only promotional one I have for this year. It's the Herfy's example of the VW Bug. Herfy's on the side with the Beetle on the roof. Let's take a closer look at some of these awesome old cars. The first car we're looking at is this Alive 55. Originally known as the Classic Nomad in the Redline Spectraflame years. This casting was first developed in 1970 and its last usage was in 1978 until it was retooled in 1991 and is currently used to this day. This first version has an opening hood, metal engine in there. All these cars feature pretty much a metal base except for the ones I'll note otherwise. Unfortunately, mine has a bit of a blemish on the roof. Adds character, I say. Sweet little casting. And what does it say on the base? Anything interesting? There you go. 1968 it says, I believe. But that's a copyright for Mattel. Made in Hong Kong. The second release of that car for 1974 was in baby blue. Pretty much exactly the same tampos and everything. This is the more hard to find version of this car. And I've got it here in pretty nice condition. There are some flea bite chips, that's what you call these little tiny ones. But overall, nice example, and I think that one cost about $100 to $150 if memory serves. The next car we're looking at is one of my favorites, the Baja Bruiser. This version has a metal base, and later years it would come out with a chrome plastic base, but the same paint job and tampo work. Another nice minty little example. This one set me back about 75 bones. And this casting, this is the first year it was produced, 1974. It ran until 1982. And then was retooled in 2009 for the RLC or HotWheels.com channel. We'll look at a couple versions here from 1974 first. Might as well look at the alternate colors next. Since we're on the topic of Baja Bruisers, here you go. You can see the one has pink behind the Stars and Stripes flag, whereas this one has blue. It also extends to the Ford logo on the back, below the Kreger licensing. Otherwise, these two are exactly the same, but very hard to come by, especially in good condition. And just to show you the first retool for 2009, HotWheels.com exclusive. They did a beautiful job on it, but it's not exactly the same. There's a noisy clock in the background. This one has a chrome plastic insert in the back versus the original solid metal cast. And the base is a chrome plastic as well. Otherwise stamped pretty much the same other than the copyrights. And of course those gorgeous Real Rider tires. This next one is a strange one in my opinion. The Breakaway Bucket. Based on a customized El Camino. This was the only year and only paint job this car was ever used. And I guess the casting was scrapped after that for unknown reasons to me. Such a neat car, I'm surprised. It's a mystery. If anyone knows the answer to why, please let me know in the comments below. Larry Wood, are you out there? Anyways, it was re-released in 2011, I believe. Yes, as the HotWheels.com Neo Classics. I don't have that example. And last seen in the HotWheels.com Series 13 Real Riders, another exclusive. So only 3 different paint jobs for that casting in total. The Buzz Off is a neat casting and is renamed from the original 1970 casting, the Try Baby. Buzz Off was used from 1974 to 1978. These first enamel painted versions featured a metal base, opening engine compartment, revealing a solid cast with the body, engine bay, and 3 interesting looking fans. This is a dark blue version with a black interior, and a very rare, never seen again in my eyes, version here is a slightly lighter blue, but basically almost the same version with a dark gray interior, clearly not black. This one is mint condition, and I did spend quite a bomb on this one. I can't remember exactly how much I spent on it, but it was probably closer to $200 or $250. And this car, also, just a sneak peek for the future 1978 video, I have a prototype of this car, an original prototype with a black plastic base and the extremely hard to find Beetle. This is like a Beetle with its front legs or something. This was only found loose apparently, never seen in a blister pack. And I got this car in a bulk lot of Redline cars I bought. A bulk lot of like 5 or 6 Redline cars. I think I spent $900 for this one and another couple rare Redlines. So pretty hard car to find. I haven't seen another one. The Carabao is another carryover car from the original Spectraflame series, first released in 1970. This is a really interesting car actually. It's a concept car based on a 1968 Alfa Romeo, and by the same name, Carabao. It was designed by Ira Guilford. It features opening scissor doors, which have not been used in many Hot Wheels. In fact, I'm not even sure if they've been used anywhere else other than this model. Possibly because the doors are so thin and fragile, they were easily broken. As many examples used and played with will show, this car missing its doors or only having little stumps left at the pivot point. A very nifty looking car. Very cool, featuring the original orange racing stripes as depicted in the original concept car. This one was used from 1974 through to 1977. Next we'll look at its alternate color variation. Unfortunately mine is fairly weathered, however the scissor doors are intact, which in my opinion is the most important thing for this model. The yellow one is quite hard to find, although not overly expensive, possibly because not too many people know about it, or maybe just because it's a strange looking car. This one set me back about $100, but I've seen them fetch about $200 on eBay in much better condition. The El Rey Special is an interesting example, and I'll just pull both colors out here. I called this blue one the alternate color simply because it seems to be a lot more expensive to buy versus the green one, which can be found for about $20 or $30. The blue one's more about $75 to $100, and I have seen a baby blue one sell for $200 plus on eBay. Sadly, I missed out on that auction. This is an interesting car because it was only produced first in 1974 and basically with that name until 1975, only in a few different colors as well. It is unsure whether the green one or the blue one was issued first. And also El Rey Special, not really sure where that name came from. In 1975 they renamed this car to the Formula Pack, which Pack was spelled P-A-C-K, each letter separated by a decimal point. Although the casting itself was reused many times, right up and through 1985 with a variety of names, including the Formula Pack as mentioned, and the Malibu Grand Prix, Lightning Gold even. Again, it was also retooled for 2011 and used in the Hot Ones series, as well as the Flying Custom series. So, pretty cool little cars. Some of them feature the original Redline capped wheels as well, while others have the base wheels. There's quite a variety of these cars out there to look for if you're hunting them down. The Funny Money is one of my favorite castings. Oh, the body just came off mine. Let's put that back together. But we can look at the base now. That's what's under the Funny Money. Looks like a Mad Max car, kind of. It was first released in 1972, featuring an unpainted finish. It has an interesting but fragile hinging system where the base connects to the body, which, although mine is not broken, it is clearly loose. Let's see if we can get that back together. There we go. So it should hinge like that. Based on an armored vehicle of sorts, a bank truck, the sunroof, and a big vault door on the back, which is pretty cute. It's a heavy little casting once you've got it all together, and was only used until 1977, so strangely a short run for this vehicle. It was reissued or retooled in 2008 for the 40 Years of Hot Wheels set, a commemoration of some of the popular old castings. And then again in the Since 68 original series, as well as an RLC version, the Sweet Rides. And so really this truck has made quite a comeback. It's last seen in the 2013 Pop Culture series. The Ferrari 312P, a beautiful exotic race car, was first introduced in 1970 in the Spectre Flame series. It came out in a multitude of colors, lots and lots of different color variations, even some different casting line variations as far as door lines and molds and all stuff like that. Casting molds, I should say. I'm not super familiar on those variations, but since my collection basically started in the Enamel series, 1974, and this was the final release for the 312. After this year, it was never seen again. Such a cool casting. Designed by Ira Guilford once again. It was based on a 3000cc prototype of a 1969 Ferrari race car. The variations I have here are just a wheel variation basically, showing the original Redline capped wheel on the bottom version. The top one's got its tampo half faded away. But a very nice opening bonnet to reveal, what is that, a 12-cylinder engine. Pretty cool. Ah, Grasshopper. That's the name of this little Jeep here. First introduced in 1971. The earlier Spectraflame versions had a canopy roof, but this version did not come with the roof. It did still feature the big blown motor on the back, the gas tank built into it. Some slight casting variations. I think the old ones had some picks and minor tools on the back. This is an interesting one, as it is being based on a Willys MB US Army Jeep. It was only made in the USA, whereas many Hot Wheels of this time were made in Hong Kong and shipped to the USA. It later came out as the Gunslinger, which we'll see in the 1975 video, and also there's a later version that has just the hood smoothed over, no engine, which is actually much harder to find and more valuable. This one's still worth about $60 or $70 in this condition, which is pretty much mint. It was also released again in 2009 as a retool for the Hot Wheels Neo Classics HotWheels.com exclusive series, I should say. Everyone's favorite has to be the Heavy Chevy. This one was first released in the 1970s Spoilers lineup of cars, Spectraflame paints of course, and chrome paints, based off of a 1968 Chevy Camaro, featuring the souped up blown motor, yellow paint, red and orange tampos. This is quite a valuable car. I think I spent about $200 to get a car like this in this condition, and they're probably even worth more now to this day. The casting was used right up until 1983, and there wasn't a whole lot of different paint variations, but it was re-released in 2002, recast I should say. So, and it's still being used to this day. I've got two examples here. The yellow one is the normal version, and the green one is the alternate color variation. Let's just put one down. We can't afford to drop this car, so this one is in mint condition. Absolutely mint. Original car, probably a blister pull by somebody, not me. There's not a chip on it, not even a flea bite. The base is shiny as can be. An extremely hard car to find in this alternate color. Only released in a few numbers for this year. I spent $1,200 to buy this car. You probably could go out and buy a shell of a Camaro for that in 1/1 scale, but it wouldn't be as rare as this little beastie. Next, let's take a look at the Ice-T. I've got a green one here, which is the main color you would find at your stores back in 1974. It's got an interesting removable white roof and a flip down, I think it's flip down, black tailgate. Maybe it's not flip down, it might be part of the interior. I'm not even going to try it, of course, don't want to break it. This car was first tooled in 1971. It was originally designed by Tom Daniel for the monogram plastic model kits of the day. Larry Wood took a spin on it and turned it into the little tiny Ice-T that you see here. It was used up until 1978 for the USA markets, and was never seen again after 1983, where it was used in France and Mexico, different paint jobs and Tampa work. It was only seen once more in a retool in 2010 for the HotWheels.com exclusives. Here's the yellow alternate version, harder to find, but not overly expensive. Still, this one's in nice shape actually. It's got a shiny base, a few flea bites on it. I think this was about $60 or $70 to buy it yellow, whereas this one's about $20 or $30 if you can find it. Also came out later on in 1977 with black wall wheels, exact same as this. The Mercedes C111, Mercedes-Benz. An interesting car with an interesting history. Hot Wheels first produced this casting in 1972, and it featured a host of different Spectraflame paint jobs. This was the final paint job with tampos for this model. It was released up until 1977, but it always had the exact same base and same body color and pretty much the same tampos, other than one rare version that actually has C111 in yellow letters on the back of the car. I do have that one too, so you'll see that in a future video. It has gull wing doors. Let's see if we can get those open, which is really cool. Another fragile feature for the Hot Wheels, and often found broken off on the played with versions. Looks really cool with the doors open. And the history behind this car: it was produced by Mercedes-Benz in the 1960s and early 70s. The company was experimenting with engine technologies and featured several different engines, including Wankel, diesel, turbochargers, and they used this platform for the base of all those engine tests. Apparently there was a version, a 4-rotor engine producing 370 horsepower in 1970 that could propel this car up to 180 miles an hour or 290 kilometers an hour. Pretty cool that this car is based on a real car and with all that history. And here's another race car with significant, interesting history. I've got two examples to show you from 1974. The Porsche 917. The orange version was the common car to find on the shelves back in the day. The red version here was an alternate color. You can see it says Porsche in the reddy purple tampo, barely visible through the red paint. There's also one that says just P917 on it. I've seen it come up for sale on eBay once, but it was really battered and the guy wanted like $400 for it, so it was a no-go. I did spend about $450 or $500 to get this red version. Has the opening engine canopy with that cool transparent window, which is often falls out in the played with versions you'll find. Actually, the really played with versions are missing the whole canopy. Let's just put that one down for a second and look at the more common one. This one was released up until 1979. First seen though in 1970 in the Grand Prix series, featuring a ton of different Spectraflame paint jobs. A popular casting and considered one of Porsche's greatest cars even to this day. It was recast in 2011, and what year? What did they do that? The Hot Ones series, that's right, and as well in 2012. The history behind this car, though, if you have a minute, is quite interesting. This model was the very first design of the Porsche 917, produced back in 1969 and raced through the 69 series right up and through 1972 when it was outlawed for having too much power. This car had so much power. It had a 4.5 liter dual overhead engine engine with dual overhead cams, rated at 620 horsepower. The car was so fast that it actually became highly unstable and killed a British racing driver. It could reach speeds of 240 miles per hour. That's incredibly fast. And basically, it turned into an airplane, essentially, on the racetrack, creating lift, and a vacuum would create over the back of the car, causing it to lift at the back and lose control. Whammo! Which wasn't good. So they had to do some tweaking, and eventually, of course, in '72, tone it down a bit with a lower powered engine, so that it would meet the standards of the racing of the time. There's quite a bit of information. You can probably read a lot more about it if you're interested. Just thought I'd give you a little introduction to that Porsche 917. It is a cool little car. The Paddy Wagon. It does not have a rich race pedigree history, but it's a cool little vehicle. First released by Hot Wheels in 1970. And some of the earlier versions had a windshield, a little plastic windshield that would stick up in front of the driver's seat position. This version does not have that, and it was dropped basically for the rest of the years that this casting was used, right up until 1983, but only up until 1977 in US markets. The final castings were again released only in France and Mexico, before it was not seen again until 1993, re-released for the 25th anniversary Hot Wheels collection. And then again, it wasn't seen again until the early or mid-2000s. I think it was actually 2009 for Hot Wheel Classics series. There was a few releases in between, I think, as well, some exclusives in that, but really not as a mainline car commonly available. Last seen in the 2015 Heritage series. The history for this casting is that it was another Tom Daniel design based off of a monogram model kit back in the 60s, just shrunk down to 1/64 scale. Now another one of my favorites, the 1974 Police Cruiser, based on an Oldsmobile 442. This is a very rare version for '74 because it has the opening hood. The casting was first made in 1973 with the opening hood, and by mid-1974 the opening hood was lost in favor of a singular cast shut hood with the body, and strangely this casting was dropped after 1977. Strange for such a nice, popular old car. This one has the Redline wheels, but it was also seen with capped wheels at times. Police Cruiser. The Olds 442 name was never actually stamped on any of these Police Cruiser cars. It's just something that collectors started adding to it for the name of the car later on. It was re-released again, a reissue for 2007, the Hot Wheels Collectors.com series, and ran through 2008. I think that was the last time we saw this car. But this one is extra cool because of that opening hood. Quite a rare car to find. I think I spent about $120 to get this example. Prowler. Formerly known as the Prowler in 1973, and prior to that released in 1970 as the Demon. The reason why it changed names from the Demon to Prowler was apparently due to religious parents having negative comments, negative thoughts about the name Demon for a Hot Wheels car for children. So Mattel changed its name to Prowler. I've got two examples of this 1974 release. Reaching back to the far quadrant for the alternate color green car, which is much harder to find than the orange one. It's got an interesting little chrome plastic engine, otherwise all metal. This car was released up until 1983, but only 1977 for the US markets. Beyond that, it was found in international markets such as Mexico and France. and perhaps some others. The orange one's worth about $20 or $30. The green one I've seen go as high as $70 or $80. If you found one that was perfectly mint, it might be even higher than that. One of my favorite smallest Hot Wheels released is the Rash 1, formerly known as the Brabham Repco 1. It was based off of a real race car, 60s race car, and first released by Hot Wheels in 1969 under that authentic name. In 1974 they changed it to Rash 1, and this was the last year this casting was ever made or seen. It has never been seen again. I've got two examples here, the only two examples known in the enamel paint series. There is potentially a blue one with a white interior, but I've never actually seen it, and if I did, I would expect it would be worth thousands of dollars. This blue one here was, I'm guessing I paid around $150, but it could have been as high as $350. I have seen it sell as high as that, but I think I got a deal on this one, which is completely mint. It's all metal except for the fragile chrome plastic engine piece on the back of the car. It's quite a small little racer. It probably wouldn't have done very well on the motorized orange racetracks of the time or later because of the wheels sticking out and likely that the axles would get bent. But this really is a cool little race car, and I'm sure with lots of history if one wanted to look that up. Next up, we've got a very interesting car with quite a bit of toy history and actual automotive history, the Red Baron. I've got two examples here, but this one is actually from 1973 and this one is from 1974. At first glance you might think the only difference is the capped wheel and the basic wheel on the 74 model. However, this version here from 73 had a pointy cap on the German military helmet, whereas the 74 model was blunted down to just a little nub, probably for safety reasons for children. The bases are exactly the same. This car was first released in 1970 by Hot Wheels and was based off of a monogram model kit as well as an actual replica car built 1/1 scale, neither of which had fenders. However, the Hot Wheels versions have fenders all the way around. So an interesting little backstory on the Red Baron. A rather cartoonish car, very cool, and quite heavy because of that helmet. This casting was dropped after 1977 until the 1993 recast for the 25th anniversary series, vintage series I should say, and has been used since then quite often, right up until 2012 in the Hot Wheels Boulevard series, which I believe it's red in that one, as a throwback featuring real rider wheels, however. Yet another one of my favorite castings is the Roger Dodger. I'll show you my mint example first, since essentially both are the same. This was based off of a 1973 Dodge Charger SE with triple opera windows as an option. You can see them right there in the back. Huge blown motor with the exhaust sticking right through the hood like a demolition derby car. In 1973, Hot Wheels first made this car and called it the Show Off, which they then blanked over on the base here for 1974. This model only ran until 1977 and was then retooled two more times starting in 2001. The second retool had the engine removed and just blanked over. It's the one you'll commonly see in your shelves of stores to this day, in the main lines. Here's the version with the capped rear wheel, which was common in the early part of 1974, as they transitioned away from the capped red lines. Otherwise, these cars are basically the same. In mint condition, this car is worth about $120 to $150. This is an absolutely mint pristine condition car, not a flea bite on it. Shiny base, of course, really quite nice. And an interesting backstory for this car as well. There apparently is an optional white interior out there somewhere. I've never actually seen one, but I imagine it would be quite rare. But beyond that, there's an even rarer version to show you that I have an old picture from, old stock HotWheels.com picture in my Excel program, which I'm going to show you right now. As we look onto my Excel program for 1974 cars in my collection and ones I've been hunting, here you see a blue version of the Roger Dodger. This was released around 1974, and I've got a little backstory I found. I can't remember where I found it, so no citation unfortunately, but I basically copied the story word for word on the history of this car, because the value on HotWheels.com was $2,200 mint loose was the recorded value. I don't know where they got that value from based on this story, which I'll read to you right now. It's only a couple sentences. In 1985, a man named Bob Parker, a young man, was trading Matchbox cars for Hot Wheels cars with a collector in England. The collector in England was trading Bob the UK Flying Colours models. In one of the boxes of assorted Flying Colours cars from England, there were two blue Roger Dodgers. Bob knew the color was different and told him to see if he could get more. The next box had 5 more of them. Bob thought he would be able to get more and started to sell them through his mail order business. There were only 7 total, and all 7 went to collectors around the country. He assumed he would get more and did not keep one for himself. He continued to trade and continued to get more Flying Colours, but never any more blue Roger Dodgers. When he asked where the man in England got them, he said he was buying the Flying Colours models from a man at a monthly toy show in Germany. Of the 7, only 3 were in complete packages, and the other 4 were in perfectly cut half packs. Therefore, that writer's value on this car is immeasurable, not $2,200, and I would be inclined to agree with him. Although it would be interesting to see what that would fetch on an open eBay market. I have never actually seen one. Now we've got the Sir Rodney Roadster. Interesting little car with a removable roof piece and a big solid die-cast metal engine sticking through the body. It's got some printing on it. I just had it upside down there. It says Sir Rodney Roadster right on the base. This car was first released in 1974 and had a very short run until 1977. I do believe it might have gone a little beyond that, though, in the international markets such as France and possibly Mexico, perhaps some other countries, because I have seen it in an unpainted version with and without these red flames coming out from around the engine. But for my collection in 1974, I have the full set. I have the yellow common version, the very uncommon orange version, and a very, very uncommon green version. Or I might have got that mixed up, I can't quite remember. But either way, these orange and green ones are quite hard to find and were considered alternate color cars. Let's put them down so we can look at them one at a time. Pretty much mint condition on this one. And it's got an interesting grille in the front, or radiator. The green one is near mint. Actually, might well be. No, yeah, pretty much near mint. It's got a few little flea bites along some of the lines and fenders, but very nice examples. These cars here, I'm pretty sure one of them, I'm thinking the orange one might be the more rare one, cost me over $200, and the green one I think was $120 or so. I'm not exactly sure on that. It's hard to remember all these prices I paid for these cars, although strangely it is quite memorable. And this yellow version is worth about $50 in mint condition. That car was based off a 1970s Lotus S4-7 Roadster. So a real car, actually. 1974 was the introduction of the Steamroller. A pretty cool looking car, very low profile, quite heavy, with a solid, robust metal base. Quite thick, as you can see. This was I guess not an overly popular car though, because after only 4 years the Steamroller ran out of steam and was retired in 1978 from the casting. It was retooled though later on, 2011, for the Hot Ones series. I think it was yellow in that version, but again, ran out of steam there because we haven't seen it since. I have a very rare version as well. It has a chrome plastic base. I believe this car, I was told, yeah, it says right on the base, was only released in Canada, of all things. The chrome plastic version is the rarest version, possibly even, I believe, rarer and more expensive than the 7-star version. So on the front clip here, you've got 3 stars, but there are other ones out there with an additional 2 stars up each front fender. I have seen them come up on eBay several times, but usually they're quite chipped and the sellers want way too much money for them. I did see a mint one once sell for over $300, I'm pretty sure. This one here cost me about $60 for the basic metal base one. And the Canadian one, I can't remember, but it was very expensive. I think it was about $200 or $250, but I've never seen it again since. Not mint anyways. Another personal favorite for me, and I'm sure many others, is the Top Eliminator, sometimes known as the Show Hoss. This is a funny car with a stand in it. Not that it's needed. If you have a nice enough model, it'll stay up on its own. Full roll cage for the driver, and a die-cast engine, one piece with the base. There's the hinge on it. This car was first released in 1974 and ended in 1983 with the less than popular Speed Machine series. But right up until 1982 it featured the interior. I'm not sure it always had that stand. I think they might have done away with the stand. But interestingly, this car shares the base with the Show Hoss, and I have a 1977 example here, also a funny car. As you can see, it doesn't have that stand, but the base is exactly the same. Same wheel dimensions and everything. So an interesting little history on that. We'll see that again, of course, when we get to the 1977 video for the Show Hoss. We'll see some other examples of it. But this one is in pristine condition. It set me back about $140. I would say I got a bargain on it at that price. I think these cars are worth more towards the $200 range in this condition in today's market. Known simply as Volkswagen, not VW Bug as I previously mentioned. VW Bug indicates the version of the Beetle that was later released in the 1980s. But this one here, the Volkswagen, was only seen in 1974 and partially in 1975, then finally one last time in 1980 for a Wisconsin toy company promotion, which we'll see in the 1980 video. So this is a pretty rare little casting. It's a heavily modified version of an earlier Spectre Flame release of the Volkswagen, which in my opinion is a different casting completely at this point. But this version here is the common one. They all featured an orange enamel paint job. A nice little base with exhaust pipe sticking out under the door and a metal engine. The first release for 1974 of this Bug was actually, what I had originally called an alternate, was this one here, which I have in even better condition than the one with the Beetle on the roof. Otherwise, these cars are identical. This version here, from numerous sources, reportedly was produced in very limited numbers, hence why its extreme price and rarity. Apparently, Hot Wheels had issues lining up the tampos on the roof, the hood, and the trunk. Apparently, the lines would often get mixed up, crossed, or just wouldn't line up with all three body parts. So it's an extremely rare piece, one that set me back close to $600. It was about $550, I believe, US dollars. And I've only seen it a couple of times, most of the time extremely beat up and chipped. This example is basically a blister pull fresh car. Absolutely wonderful. 1974, 1975, one or the other. It was also labeled with the Herfies for the Herfies promotional. Essentially the exact same car as the 74 version. Absolutely no differences other than Herfies. One note about Herfies cars, they are more expensive than the non-Herfies versions because of more scarcity. But be careful when buying these and check the side door tampo carefully for a fraudulent tampo or paint job, as it would be fairly easy to forge this car. Oftentimes you'll see a textured or three-dimensional look to the fake ones. So the original ones, such as this, are pretty much flat and shiny with the base, or with the base coat, just as the Beetle is on the roof. Alphabetically last, we've got the Winnipeg. This is a cool car, which originally Hot Wheels made and called the Chaparral 2G. This is an actual real-life car from the race circuits of the 60s and 70s. Has an opening cowling on the back and a removable spoiler. Now the spoiler is quite easy to come out. You can see how loose it is, and this spoiler is often lost on opened cars, and reproductions are very, very close looking to the original spoiler. So you have to really examine the spoiler if you want to be sure that you have an all original car with original spoiler. This one, I can tell you, is all original because I pulled this one from a badly damaged card and blister several years ago on video. It's in one of my videos if you go back through all those videos and find it. I can't even remember which one. But I spent, I think, $250 for this car on card. I have seen it sell much more recently for about half that price. But loose, you can't be sure with that spoiler if it was original or not unless you have two of them side by side. And not very often do you get a chance to look at these cars side by side with the original spoiler. See if we can just zoom in on that. You can see how delicate that spoiler is and how easily broken it would have been during play. 1974 was, of course, the last year for the Winnipeg. It has never been seen again, which is a shame. One last note, too, is that this car was available with all capped wheels for a time, although they are much harder to find than this version here with the newer style Redline basic wheels. The last car which we haven't mentioned or looked at closely is the Porsche 911 in white enamel. However, I believe this car found its way into my 1974 case collection by accident, as it was actually released in 1975 when I checked my notes. So, you'll have to watch the 1975 video to get the rundown on this beauty. Whew. Thank you for watching my 1974 comprehensive Hot Wheels collection video. And stay tuned. Each week I'm going to try and get out another year of vehicles or castings produced by Hot Wheels. Taking each case off the wall as we go. Next up we've got 1975, which is full of amazing, interesting castings. Some that were never seen again, some extremely rare vehicles as well. So we will look at that next week. And for the weeks following, look at all the Hot Wheels we're going to look at. Hundreds, maybe thousands, well, more like thousands. All of these old Blackwalls and Redlines are coming out for a little tour on the wood top table and a little show and tell. Of course, I'll still have my regular videos, Greenlight, new stuff, M2, and some other stuff I have to review. I've been a little slow on the video production as of late. Got really busy with work, so apologies on that. But the WTF FOR channel is going to continue going strong for all those collectors that still enjoy my videos. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, happy hunting.